welcome to our English news bulletin broadcast to you from Canal, Algérie. First, to the headlines. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, receives the Portuguese Foreign Affairs Minister, Augusto Santos Silva. General Mouloud Belhaj, the General Manager of Aeronautical Industries Development, passes away, and the President of the Republic offers his family his sincere condolences. The Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Lieutenant General Saïd Chinguereha, holds meetings of Qatari officials during the visit he is paying to this country. And the Speaker of the Senate, Salah Goujil, reiterates his crystal clear rejection of Spain's policy shift on the Western Saharan fair cause. Good evening, those were today's headlines. First, in our today's news, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, received on Wednesday the Portuguese State Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Augusto Santos Silva. The audience took place in the presence of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ramtan Al-Amamra, and the Principal Private Secretary of the Presidency of the Republic, Abdelaziz Khalaf. Following the audience, the Portuguese Foreign Affairs Minister, Augusto Santos Silva, had this to say to the newsman.
It's a great pleasure to visit Algeria. I was honored to be received by the President of the Republic. Portugal owes Algeria the important role it has played in the democratization process of Portugal. Always in Algeria, we signed in 1975 the accords which allowed the African colonies of Portugal to be independent, thus the emergence of new countries in Africa. Algeria and Portugal belong to the same region, namely the Mediterranean basin, in which we are key partners. We both advocate stability, good relations between peoples. We participate in regional cooperation organizations, including the Union for the Mediterranean. Our bilateral relations are perfect at all levels, political, diplomatic and economic. Several Portuguese enterprises are based in Algeria. We intend to enhance cooperation in the sector of energy. Portugal pays a great attention to Algeria as regards the regional issues because we need stability.
In other news, the General Manager of the Aeronautical Industries Development Establishment, General Mouloud Belhaj, has passed away following a heart attack at the Central Hospital of the Army, Mohammed Saghir Nakash. On this sad occasion, the President of the Republic, Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, Abdelmajid Tebboune, sent a message of condolences to the family of the late, in which he said that he learned this news with great sadness. May Allah grant the deceased his mercy. The President of the Republic added that we are bidding farewell to one of the officers of the National People's Army who served the military institution with full dedication and merit. The deceased, whose remarkable scientific skills and high sense of commitment and responsibility earned him the trust and a place at the hand of one of the most important institutions which supports our armed forces by modern technologies in the process of building and professionalization undertaken by the National People's Army. During this painful ordeal, the President of the Republic presented his sincere condolences to the family members of the late, all officers, soldiers, and staff of the Aeronautical Industries Development Establishment, as well as all officers and soldiers who have known the late throughout his career. May Allah Almighty welcome him to his vast paradise, concluded the President of the Republic. For his part, the Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Lieutenant General Said Shingriha, presented on his behalf and on behalf of the National People's Army's personnel his sincere condolences to the family and relatives of the late General Mulud Bilhaj, praying Allah Almighty to welcome him in his vast paradise and to give his family and loved ones enough courage and strength during this painful and difficult ordeal. The Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Lieutenant General Said Shingriha, continued his official visit to Qatar, where he held talks with senior Qatari military and civilian officials. The Chief of Staff took part in the opening of the Middle East Marine Commanders Conference and the Maritime Defense Exhibition, DMEX 2022. Ines Killo.
On the sidelines of his participation in the DMEX 2022 exhibition, Lieutenant General Said Shingriha, Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, had a special meeting at the Prince's Palace with His Excellency Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani, the personal representative of His Highness the Emir of the State of Qatar, which reflects the excellent relations existing between Algeria and Qatar. The Lieutenant General was then received by Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdurrahman bin Jassim Al Thani, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar. As tribute to Algeria's participation in the 7th edition of the International Maritime Defense Exhibition in Doha, Lieutenant General Said Shingriha had a special meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of State for Defense Affairs, Dr. Khalid bin Mohammed Al Atiyah, who highlighted the place of Algeria and its defense policy before praising its participation with the frigate Al Mudammir, ship number 911, in the exhibition. The Lieutenant General had previously met with the advisor of His Highness Al Emir of Qatar for Defense Affairs, Army General Hamad bin Ali Al Atiyah. On this occasion, the two parties discussed the importance of military doctrine and training and their role in building a competent and modern military institution.
Moving on to the parliamentary activity, the Council of the Nation adopted the bill on the exercise of trade union rights during a plenary session chaired by the President of the Senate, Salah Goujil, in the presence of the Minister of Labour, Youssef Sharfa, and the Minister of Relations with the Parliament, Besma Azwar. Salah Goujil renewed his refusal on the occasion of the new Spanish position on the Sahrawi issue.
الغربية هذا استعمار نتاع اسبانيا.
It's a real colonization by Spain, which sold the Sahrawi lands in 1975, and now by its policy shift, Spain betrays again Western Sahara, as if it were representing the United Nations. It's a decade-long issue, and it is still going on for 40 years, despite the ceasefire brokered in 1991 on the basis of a Moroccan recognition of the right to self-determination. We have backed this decision stemming from the will of the Sahrawi people, who have the right, while a self-determination referendum has to be held under the UN aegis to ensure the transparency and the respect of the Western Saharan people will.
Always in the parliamentary activity, the Council of the Nations Bureau held a meeting to review the activities planned for the coming weeks. A parliamentary seminar on the law on local authorities was organized by the parliamentary group of the Movement of Society for Peace. The event took place in the presence of the President of the National People's Assembly, Ibrahim Boughali, and representatives of several sectors, as well as analysts for a new local governance. The Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman chaired on Wednesday a government meeting here in Algiers, during which several points were examined. The gist of the meeting with our colleague Melissa Kubash.
As regards the field of agriculture, a draft executive decree was presented to amend the basic law of the National Plant Protection Institute, the Scientific Council. The same institute will also be endowed with more extensive prerogatives in order to ensure the monitoring and evaluation of the progress of its projects. Concerning the field of higher education and scientific research, a draft executive decree reviewing the system of studies and training for obtaining certificates of higher education was presented. This decree reflects a new comprehensive and organized vision of all aspects related to the studies and training systems for obtaining national higher education certificates, which makes it up to date with the current developments at the national and international levels. As for the field of culture, the Minister of Culture presented a communication on the organization of the 25th edition of the International Book Fair in the capital Algiers, SILA 2022, which will kick off on March 24th at the Exhibition Center of Les Pins Maritimes. Italy will be this edition's guest of honor and will have an approximate participants number of 1,250 exhibitors, including 266 Algerians, 324 from Arab countries, and 660 foreign exhibitors of different nationalities. The novelty of this edition is the establishment of a digital platform allowing the virtual visit of the fair via the Zoom Expo technology, as well as the remote selling of books. In the field of industry, the department minister presented a communication on the progress of the implementation of the new industrial zones, and within this framework, the Prime Minister charged the members of the government in charge of this operation to take the necessary measures for the lifting of the encountered constraints by granting priority to the industrial zones so as to meet the growing demands for land by investors.
In cooperation, the Foreign Affairs Minister Mtala Mamra received on Wednesday his Portuguese counterpart Augusto Santos Silva. The discussions were then enlarged to include the delegations of both countries. After the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez was criticized by all sides for recent stance on the Sahrawi file, he will explain himself next week before MPs. The latter are maintaining pressure and have varnished the Sahrawi flag in the parliament. The discontent has spread all over the country, where numerous pro-Sahrawi demonstrations took part.
We have always been and will remain with the principle of defending human rights. We will continue to support the right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination, and it is up to everyone to respect this right because it is a fair cause. We are trying to understand the reason for this reversal in the position of the Spanish government, and we don't understand this, especially since the head of the Spanish government was the first defender of the Sahrawi cause. As I said before, the Spanish government cannot turn its back on the Sahrawi people and on the international legality. We know that Morocco is hindering and not responding to the demands of the Sahrawi people. In any case, the Sahrawi people have the right to decide their own fate, which should have been done 30 years ago. The current government has taken a unilateral decision ignoring the conventions signed between the two countries and all the UN efforts, and this change has no explanation, unfortunately. Today we have a question for the Foreign Affairs Committee in this radical change towards the Sahrawi people. The current Spanish government has disregarded all international laws. All other successive governments made their decisions on the basis of respect for the freedom of the Sahrawi people. This is a principle that all countries in the world must respect. Respect for this right is human. For our part, we defend the respect of international law.
This betrayal is not new. We say to Sanchez and the President of the United States, Trump, that their positions will not dissuade the Sahrawi people from snatching the right to freedom and independence. Our cause is not a cause of state, heads of governments or individuals, but a cause of people. And it is their decision. We will continue our struggle until we win our right.
خالف كل مسار الحكومات المتعاقبة.
The Spanish head of government, Sanchez, has taken a position that surprised us all regarding the Sahrawi cause. He is odd with the process undertaken by successive governments that have supported the peace plan and international legality and that have encouraged the Sahrawi people to self-determination. We call this decision a new betrayal after the Madrid Convention. This is due to the blackmail exercised by the Makhzen through the great flow of immigration and drugs.
سياسة الابتزاز التي ما ينهجها المخزن المغربي من خلال الضغط عن طريق أمواج هائلة من المهاجرين.
Reactions condemning Spain's policy shift on Western Sahara keep emanating from the political class in the country, as well as other prominent figures, to push the official authorities to give up the current stance and stick to the international legality. More details with Ines Kello.
The Spanish citizens keep taking to the street to denounce the abrupt policy shift of the Spanish authorities on Western Sahara. The demonstrators seized this opportunity to reiterate their full support of the Sahrawi fair cause and the right of self-determination to the Sahrawi people. The Spanish associations and civil society followed suit and voiced their crystal clear rejection of the official Spanish policy, which doesn't represent their country. The protest movement reached its climax when members of the Spanish parliament expressed their refusal of the policy adopted by Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. They raised the Sahrawi flags in parliament and called on him to abandon his stance, which goes against the international legality based on decolonization and the right to self-determination of people. Other protest movements are in the offing to end this crisis, still fueling tension in the region.
That was Salim Mirah reporting. For its part, Morocco is sustaining a serious economic crisis. Moroccan financial experts are sounding the alarm to draw the attention of people to cope with the harsh economic situation. Melissa Kabash has the full details.
Morocco, a country on the verge of bankruptcy, marked by a sharp decline in growth rate and inflation, which is considered, according to Moroccan financial experts, as alarming signals, warning the Makhzen regime about the gravity of the economic situation that led to social consequences, such as poverty, the increase of debt, unemployment, social disparities that affected the prices of basic necessities. The analysts rely on the international financial institutions' data, including the U.S. Federal Reserve, Fed. According to experts, the Fed's decision to raise interest rates on federal funds will push several countries to move towards financial markets in the United States. This increase will affect the Moroccan position on international markets due to the rise of the US dollar. In accordance with the Moroccan analyst Omar Bakou, the situation will urge the Moroccan authorities to resort to the international markets to borrow nearly $4 billion, as provided by the 2022 finance law, alongside $6 billion from the domestic markets through medium and long-term debts. The experts are also warning concerning the debt, which should be doubled, especially since the Makhzen regime will be obliged to go to the IMF, which will have serious impacts at the social, economic and political levels. This situation is exacerbated by the increase of imports, particularly when it comes to energy and wheat, likely to affect the Moroccan financial balances. In the same context, the report published by Al Maghreb Bank overwhelmed the Makhzen regime, estimating that the economic growth in Morocco for the year 2022 would sustain a significant drop and wouldn't exceed 0.7%, while the inflation rate should witness a sharp rise. It is worth mentioning that the situation in Morocco has been worsened by the Makhzen regime's practices, while the Moroccan people are in the streets demanding a deep change and the departure of the current regime.
A meeting was held at the Shaib Center with the aim of discussing the latest decision taken by the Spanish government concerning the Sahrawi cause. The details with Melissa Kabash once again.
Teachers of international relations gathered on Wednesday at the Shab Center, where they held a debate meeting related to the Spanish government's position when it comes to the Sahrawi cause and its repercussions on the region.
It is a betrayal of Spain to the Sahrawi fair cause, which occurred in the past in 1975 during the partition agreement of the Sahrawi territories. According to the data we have, the decision of the Spanish Prime Minister was taken under pressure from Morocco, known to resort to blackmail to get what it wants. We must get more data and information before acting, especially with the changes occurring in the world. Algeria will always support nations fighting for their right to self-determination.
According to these experts, the unexpected decision of the head of the Spanish government comes in a total violation of the international law and the UN process that guarantees the right to self-determination of the Sahrawi people.
Back to national news, a convention was signed between the Algerian State Television and the Council of the Algerian Economic Renewal. The signing ceremony took place on Wednesday by the Algerian Public Television's General Manager, Sha'ban Lonakel, and the President of CREA, Kamal Moula. This is about accompanying the economic companies and the country's development dynamics. And we wrap up our today's news with sports. CR Belouizdad defeated Mouloudia of Algiers with 1-0 as part of the National Football Championship. The only goal of the game was scored by the defender Chouaib Qaddar. With this result, CRB consolidates its top position of the competition with 45 points. And with that, our today's news edition comes to a close. Thank you for joining us.